Chapter 1. The 97th time, Sylvia Shaw's private story was updated yet again. The picture was of a floor littered with messy clothes and used condoms. The caption read, "He's such a beast. This box was barely enough. I slammed my phone shut, my mind flashing back to the delivery I had mistakenly received an hour ago. It was a large box of condoms and a sexy lace lingerie set. Sylvia had intentionally sent the delivery to the home I shared with Julian Forrester, just to spite me. But that wasn't enough for her. She had to post a private story that only I could see. Suppressing the agony in my heart, I picked up my phone and made a call. In addition to the divorce papers, I need you to draw up a leukemia report for me. And a box of ashes. Of course, Miss Gardner. Would you also like our PR department to disseminate the evidence of your husband's infidelity? It's a complimentary service." I paused, my eyes falling on the wedding ring on my finger. Yes, I want to ruin his reputation and make him regret this for the rest of his life. Understood. The report generation has been initiated. All other matters will be completed before your wedding day. I hung up. I couldn't bear to stay in this house a moment longer, so I grabbed my bag and walked out. Hey, Hope, what are you doing shopping by yourself? Where's Julian? I had just arrived at the Salome Mall when I heard someone call my name. I turned to see a vibrantly dressed, outgoing young woman. I remembered her. She was my high school classmate, Holly Tanner. We had been on pretty good terms. It's been a while, I'm just browsing. Julian had something urgent come up at the office, so he couldn't make it. Though my heart was being torn to shreds, I managed a polite smile. Julian? He was probably still cuddling with Sylvia after their latest tryst, but how could I possibly say that out loud? Oh, I see. By the way, I heard you two are finally having your wedding next month. It's about time. You've been together for 7 years and legally married for almost 6 months. If you didn't have the ceremony soon, I'd think you'd lost your mind and were backing out. If you let a perfect man like Julian Forrester go, where else would you find someone like him? Remember last year when that car's brakes failed and it almost hit you? Julian instantly shoved you out of the way. He was the one who got hit, ended up with a bleeding head, and spent a month in the ICU. The very first thing he did when he woke up was propose to you, promising to protect you for life. When we girls heard about it, we all cried our eyes out. We were so jealous of you. Julian Forrester is literally the best man in the world. Holly had always been blunt, so I didn't hold it against her, but I couldn't help but feel my expression darken. Thinking of the post I had just seen, I couldn't stop myself from asking about that woman. Do you know how Sylvia Shaw is doing these days? At the mention of her name, Holly rolled her eyes in disdain. Her. She's some kind of beauty blogger. God knows what man she's latched onto now. Her feed is so full of gushy posts about her love life, it makes me sick. Oh, right, you're probably thinking about how she used to chase Julian. Back then, she confessed to him in front of the whole school, and he shot her down so hard she ran off crying. And even after you two got together, she shamelessly pestered him for 7 years. So shameless. Good thing she's found someone else now. She won't be bothering you two anymore. Won't she? When I looked at Sylvia's public feed on Holly's phone, it was all selfies and glimpses of a man's clothes or his back. But the private story she posted just for me was filled with suggestive, risque pictures that featured Julian's all too familiar Adam's apple, his hands, his abs. I returned home late that night, but Julian wasn't back yet. I curled up on the sofa, remembering how Julian and I hadn't been intimate until after we were legally married. He had said it was because he cherished me, that with me by his side, sex wasn't important. He wanted us to enjoy a few years as a couple first. So even now, the number of times we'd shared a bed could be counted on one hand. It turned out he had been venting all that desire on someone else. It turned out he didn't want a world for 2, but a world for 3. Chapter 2. My eyes were dry. I rubbed them, and tears began to spill out. When I heard the door open, I didn't move. Julian walked in carrying a small birthday cake and placed it on the table before wrapping his arms around me from behind. Noticing my tears, the smile on his face vanished, and he apologized frantically. "Wifey, why are you crying? I'm so sorry. I had a last-minute meeting that ran late, and this little cake was the only one left at the bakery. I'll buy you the most extravagant one tomorrow to make it up to you, okay?" He was so close that the scent of women's perfume from his neck filled my senses. I frowned and pulled away, a gesture he misinterpreted as me still being angry about him being late. After cooing sweet nothings in my ear, Julian took a jewelry box out of his pocket and prompted me to open it. But my gaze was fixed on his neck, on an unnatural patch of skin where he'd clearly used concealer to hide something. I knew there had been no last-minute meeting. Even if there had been, if he'd ordered the cake in advance, this wouldn't have happened. In the end, it was because he'd spent all his time on the delivery Sylvia had ordered. Seeing that I wasn't moving, Julian opened the box himself. Inside was a sapphire bracelet. He gently and carefully fastened it around my pale wrist, then pressed a soft kiss to the back of my hand. My wifey looks beautiful in anything. Goosebumps prickled my skin. I felt sick, but I didn't lash out. Instead, I picked up a folder from the side table, flipped to the last page of the divorce agreement, and handed it to him. I need you to sign this too. Once you sign it, I won't be angry anymore. Julian looked puzzled. What is this document? It's the Bayside condo. I want you to transfer it to my name. I'm getting older and I don't have any security to my name. What if one day you don't love me anymore? Just think of it as a birthday present. As I spoke, my eyes reddened at just the right moment, not for the condo, but for his betrayal. A pained look instantly crossed Julian's face. He squeezed my hand tightly, his eyes filled with sincere love. How could my wifey ever get old, and how could I ever stop loving you? Okay, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. I'm all yours, let alone these material things. Fearing I might actually start crying, Julian immediately signed the paper. After watching me put the agreement away, he asked with concern, "Do you need anything else? I can give you anything." "No, that's enough, Julian, that's enough." I gently stroked his face. He pressed into my touch as if receiving a blessing. "Julian Forrester, I don't have to watch you act anymore." Chapter 3. The next day, we went for our scheduled wedding photo shoot. I had woken up in the middle of the night and cried on the balcony for a while, so my eyes were red and swollen. Julian looked at me, his heart aching. "Why are your eyes so swollen? Is it an allergy? Maybe we should reschedule the shoot. I can take you to the hospital." His eyes were full of worry as he held my hand tightly, the diamond on my ring finger sparkling brightly. There were quite a few people in the makeup room, and they all watched as Julian, handsome and considerate, fussed over me. Their envy was palpable. "He's so attentive and caring, I feel like I married too soon. She really knows how to pick a man. How did I end up with that pig? He just plays video games when I'm on my period." Exactly, the guy I married complained our wedding photos were too expensive, so we had to rent the cheapest dress. Hers looked so expensive. The more I heard their words, the more my heart ached. What none of them knew was that this man, who appeared to love me to the bone, had been secretly sleeping with Sylvia Shaw for a total of 97 times. That was the number Sylvia had made sure to show me in a private comment, her flaunting tone stabbing me like a knife. "It's fine. We're already here. A little extra concealer will cover it up." My smile was faint, meant to reassure Julian, but when I mentioned concealer, the emphasis in my voice made him subconsciously touch his neck. Seeing me calmly applying my makeup as if nothing was wrong, he seemed to let out a sigh of relief and lowered his hand. I saw it all from the corner of my eye. I simply closed my eyes, unwilling to look at his charade any longer. After my makeup was done, Julian and I entered the photo studio. He was tall and handsome, and I was gentle and moving. The photographer couldn't stop praising us during the shoot. "Great bride, don't be shy." A little closer to the groom. At the photographer's urging, I moved closer. Julian took the opportunity to wrap his arm around my waist, a smile playing on his lips, his eyes full of love for me. "What's this? You're already my wife, and you're still so shy. We're not in high school anymore." Julian was undeniably handsome, and his smile was like a spring breeze, making the female assistant in the studio's heart race. But as I looked at his affectionate expression, my mind drifted back to the first time I opened that delivery and saw the condoms and black stockings. My initial reaction wasn't anger or resentment, but a memory of the moment I first fell for Julian. Back then, my family had gone bankrupt. My father, burdened with massive debt, had run away, only for his body to be found in the city moat. My mother couldn't handle it and took her own life. At school, I was bullied by the children of the families my father owed money to. One day, in the equipment room, They grabbed my hair and were about to slam my head against the wall when Julian burst in. He kicked the boys away and pulled me into his arms, glaring at them like a ferocious beast. Touch her again, and you're dead. From that day on, I became Julian's shadow, and I gladly let him cherish and protect me. He would take meticulous care of me during my period. He worked part-time jobs to pay for my tuition. To be with me, he was willing to break ties with his mother, starting over with me in a tiny rented apartment, building a business from scratch. His friends called him a devoted lover, a hopeless, lovesick fool. When he woke up in the ICU, he ignored the nurses' protests and got down on one knee to propose. He held me tightly, thankful that he was the one injured and unconscious, not me. He begged me to give him a chance to protect me forever. He was the one who once vowed to protect me for a lifetime, and now he was the one causing me unbearable pain. Chapter 4. Tears streamed down my face, one after another, beyond my control. Julian frantically tried to wipe them away, but they flowed like a broken dam. "Wifey, don't cry. What's wrong? You don't like the style of the shoot." "No, I was just thinking about when we first got together. I'm just feeling a little emotional." I managed to come up with an excuse to placate him. My makeup was ruined by the tears, so we had to stop the shoot. Julian told the makeup artist we would take a break and touch it up later. He left for a while. As I sat resting on the sofa, I overheard the assistant and another client whispering about me being emotional and fussy, but I didn't care. When Julian returned, he was carrying a coffee. He carefully unwrapped it, inserted a straw, and handed it to me. "It's okay, we have all day. We can shoot until tonight if we need to." There was no blame, no frustration, just gentle care, as if he really, truly loved me. Julian's phone screen lit up. He instinctively turned away, but my dull eyes still caught the sender's profile picture. It was Sylvia. "Wifey, something urgent came up with a project at work. Let's come back and shoot another time." After reading the message, he swallowed hard, immediately stood up, planted a kiss on my forehead, and rushed off. Watching his retreating back, I opened Sylvia's social media feed with a practiced familiarity. Sure enough, there was a new post. It was a photo of Sylvia in a camisole and black stockings. The tight black lace lingerie accentuated her voluptuous figure, making her look even more mature and seductive. The caption read, "The flower is in full bloom, waiting for someone to pluck it." The photographer came into the break room to ask when we would resume shooting, only to find me with my head bowed, my hands gripping the hem of my wedding dress so tightly that I had torn it. "We're not shooting anymore. Delete all the photos," I replied coldly. "Are you sure, ma'am? The deposit is non-refundable and these shots are really good. I said delete them, didn't you hear me?" My sudden shout startled the photographer. Not knowing what had happened, he could only stammer his agreement. "I'm sorry, I lost my composure just now. You did a great job, I just don't need them anymore." With that, I walked out in the torn wedding dress. Maybe she had a fight with the groom, the photographer thought. Chapter 5. The 98th time, Sylvia's private story was updated again. I listed the wedding dress on a second-hand marketplace for a low price. I had only torn it a little, it could easily be repaired. But the tear in my heart could never be mended. When Julian came back, he asked when we could go for another photo shoot. I just shook my head. "There's no need to trouble ourselves. I'm sure the photos from the wedding itself will be beautiful, don't you think? It's my fault, wifey. I've been so busy lately. After the wedding, we'll go on our honeymoon, anywhere you want to go." To show his remorse, Julian cooked for the first time in a long while. After tying on an apron, he deliberately pulled me into his arms, pressing me against his chest. "Listen, it's saying it likes you." His heart was thumping loudly. I smiled and said, "Just like its owner," but my heart felt desolate. "Even your heart is lying to me." A message lit up Julian's phone. After a glance, he quickly untied his apron. As I watched him with a bewildered expression, he took my hand. "The class reunion is at 7 tonight. We can still make it if we leave now." "Didn't you say 2 days ago that you weren't going?" Though I had a vague idea of the answer, I still wanted to hear what excuse he would concoct this time. Julian didn't have time to think of a good reason. He just said casually, "I was busy before, but I happen to be free today. And it's been a while since we've all seen each other." I didn't argue and got in the car with him. The reunion was held in a well-known restaurant downtown, in a private room booked by the class monitor. We arrived late, and the room was already nearly full. "Look who it is, our devoted lover, Mr. Forrester, and his one true love, Hope." The class monitor started the teasing, and the other boisterous guys cheered and whistled. "Hope, is that a limited edition Van Cleef Arpels bracelet on your wrist? I'm so jealous. Mr. Forrester must be doting on you again," a sharp-eyed girl said with a hint of envy. "It's just a birthday present," I said, my spirits low. I tried to cover the bracelet with my other hand, but Julian held it tightly, lacing his fingers with mine. "No gift, no matter how expensive, is as important as her happiness." Julian looked at me dotingly, the love in his eyes causing another round of whoops and hollers from the crowd. 7 years, and Mr. Forrester is still so in love, a true role model. I need to make my husband see how a real man treats his wife. "Mr. Forrester, don't just show off your love. When are you treating us all to the wedding feast? If you wait any longer, Hope will be an old maid. I'm here today specifically to invite all of you." Suddenly, Julian took a stack of ornate invitation cards from his briefcase. He handed one to the class monitor first, then went around distributing them to everyone. I had no idea when he'd prepared these. No wonder he'd been carrying his briefcase everywhere. Every classmate who received an invitation excitedly congratulated us. I had no choice but to thank them for their well wishes. In the middle of the crowd, we looked like a truly loving golden couple. When 10 people believe a lie, it becomes the truth, and far more than 10 people had witnessed how much Julian loved me. Well, looks like I've arrived just in time." A seductive voice reached my ears. I stiffened, already seeing Sylvia Shaw pushing the door open and taking an invitation from Julian's hand. Julian's gaze flickered away. He just said, "Welcome," and turned to hand an invitation to the next person. Sylvia waved cheerfully at me and praised loudly, "Hope, you're looking more and more beautiful. No wonder Julian likes you so much." She then sat down as if she hadn't noticed the awkward expressions on everyone's faces. "Why is everyone so quiet? Are we strangers now? You're not still holding a grudge about that old business with me and Julian, are you? That's all in the past. I've already posted about my new boyfriend on my feed. Look, here's the new bag he bought me. Isn't it gorgeous?" Sylvia held up her bag, showing it off proudly. Seeing her so carefree, everyone seemed to relax. The dishes started arriving, and the atmosphere quickly livened up with laughter and conversation. Only I stared at Sylvia's bag, a bitter smile on my face. I recognized that bag. A few days ago, Julian had asked me which one I liked, and I had pointed to that exact model. Then he told me it was a limited edition and had already sold out, promising to buy me something else to make up for it. I had never cared about material things, but now the person I cared about no longer cared about me. Chapter 6. With Sylvia there, I had no appetite at all. Every time Julian noticed a dish I liked, he would use the serving utensils to place some in my bowl, but I barely touched my food. Our classmates commented on how he treated me like a child. "If you don't have an appetite, have some fruit." When the waiter brought the fruit platter, Julian noticed there were cherries, my favorite, and stood up to get some for me. Mid-air, Julian's tongs collided with Sylvia's outstretched chopsticks. She covered her mouth and giggled. "Oh, sorry, I was trying to get the dish next to it." "It's fine." Julian deliberately avoided her gaze, but a moment later, their utensils tangled again. Sylvia said sorry again, and this time their eyes met. Julian's gaze subconsciously fell on the tip of Sylvia's pink tongue as she licked her lips. He swallowed hard, then flusteredly picked some mango and put it in my bowl. "Wifey, I almost forgot you can't eat mango." Julian regretted it as soon as he'd done it. How could he have forgot? "It's okay. I had bubble tea earlier, so I'm not hungry now. You can have the mango." I glanced at Sylvia's seductive smile. I truly had no appetite for anything. "Well, if you get hungry later tonight, I'll make you a midnight snack." Julian didn't suspect a thing, and his gentle words once again drew envious sighs from our classmates. After the dinner ended, everyone was getting ready to head home. Sylvia caught everyone's attention. "It's still early. Why don't we go to a karaoke bar?" Her suggestion was quickly met with approval. Julian leaned in close to my ear and asked if I wanted to go, saying we could head home if I didn't. He was asking for my opinion, but I knew Julian too well. His expression clearly showed he wanted to go. The reason, of course, was Sylvia. By now, I was numb to it all, but I still agreed. Julian led me to a corner of the sofa. while Sylvia sat diagonally across from us, in a spot with the best view. The first song has to be sung by our former singing competition champion. A few of the guys, who had had a bit to drink, were in high spirits and started egging Julian on to sing the first song. He couldn't resist their enthusiasm, and with a little show of reluctance, selected a famous love song medley and began to sing with deep emotion. His magnetic, deep voice, paired with his handsome features, captivated everyone in the room. I, too, found myself in a daze, remembering the singing competition back in the day. Julian, in a white shirt, a bright, star-like youth, singing while playing the piano. When I went on stage to give him the bouquet as we'd planned, he had mischievously turned his back to the audience to secretly entwine his fingers with mine. Under the watchful eyes of all the teachers and students, he had secretly held hands with the girl he liked. But now, though his face and voice had only matured, I couldn't reconcile the boy from my memories with the man standing before me. At the end of the song, Julian slowly walked over to me, pulled me to my feet, and drew me into his arms. Kiss, kiss! The stimulating scene immediately whipped the crowd into a frenzy, everyone cheering for us to kiss. Just then, Sylvia clutched her stomach and left the room, but everyone was so focused on Julian and me that no one noticed her leave. Just as Julian was about to lean in and kiss me, an ill-timed phone ringtone shattered the moment. Julian's expression changed instantly. He let go of me and answered the call. Chapter 7. Amidst the disappointed groans of the crowd, Julian made a quick excuse about an important work call and hurried away from me. The music switched to someone else's song. I listened to the melody that was no longer ours and poured myself a drink. That ringtone wasn't Julian's usual one. It was a custom tone set for a specific person. I saw that Sylvia's seat was empty and knew exactly what was happening. Couldn't he even last the duration of a single song? With Julian gone, Holly scooted over. Seeing me downing glass after glass of alcohol, she quickly tried to stop me. Good heavens, you can't hold your liquor and you're drinking like this. If you pass out, Mr. Forrester is going to have our heads. It's fine. He won't, I said with a bitter smile. Holly sensed a strange sadness emanating from me but couldn't understand why. With someone who loved her so much, why would she be sad? Suddenly, two guys who had just come back from the restroom burst in, shouting excitedly. Holy crap, someone's getting it on in the men's room. No way, this is a respectable karaoke bar, isn't it? Are you guys drunk? We're not that drunk. The woman was moaning like crazy. We even recorded it. This was juicy gossip. Everyone stopped what they were doing and the music was turned off. The sound of a woman's seductive moans and a man's suppressed, heavy breathing filled the room from the phone speaker. The room erupted. That's insane, doing it in a bathroom. How desperate can you be? Heck, you have to admit that woman knows how to moan. What man could resist that? That's disgusting. Stop playing that and put some music on. In the noisy, chaotic room, my face turned pale as I opened Sylvia's latest post. The photo showed her wearing only lingerie, leaning over a toilet with her back to the camera. A man's hand was gripping her left buttock. I knew that hand all too well. It was Julian's. Chapter 8. Hope, what's wrong? Noticing my strange behavior, Holly worriedly supported me as I suddenly swayed. Why hasn't Julian come back from that phone call yet? I'll go look for him. Holly was about to go find him, but I stopped her. It's nothing, probably just low blood sugar. I'll be fine after a piece of candy. You guys go on and have fun, I just need to go home and rest. But, aren't you going to wait for Julian? What if something happens to you in this state? Holly found it odd that I would leave without him. His work is really important lately. I can manage on my own. I'll just get a cab. Don't worry about me, you guys have fun. Amidst the surprised gazes of our classmates, I said my goodbyes and hailed a cab home. In the car, I closed my eyes, trying to calm the turmoil in my heart. When I was about 10 minutes from home, Julian called. I let the phone ring several times before finally answering. He sounded anxious. Wifey, you have low blood sugar. Why didn't you wait for me? I could have taken you home and looked after you. I almost laughed. I deliberately tested him. I didn't think it through. Now my head hurts. Can you come and meet me at the city hospital? He must have assumed I would refuse again, because he was clearly not expecting me to actually ask him to come. For a moment, he was speechless, but I keenly heard a suppressed groan from his end of the line. Then he apologized sweetly. Wifey, I'm really swamped here. Why don't you book a patient companion? The ones at the city hospital are very patient and professional. I'll be with you as soon as I get back. After hanging up, I received a money transfer from Julian on my phone, along with a sorry kitty emoji. I didn't accept the money. I just silently rolled down the car window, letting the night wind try to carry away my sobs and sweep my sorrow into the darkness. What do you think you're doing? On the other side, outside the karaoke room. After hanging up, Julian grabbed the hand Sylvia had been rubbing on his inner thigh and demanded coldly. Sylvia froze, stunned for a moment, then smiled placatingly. Why are you so fierce? I saw you frowning, and I just wanted to make you happy. Weren't we having a great time just now? She tried to move closer to seduce him again, but he grabbed her by the neck, choking her until she couldn't speak. Julian's expression was ice cold, a fire of rage burning in his eyes. Sylvia Shaw, I'm telling you, I can give you anything you want except marriage. But you remember this. If Hope ever finds out about us, I will not let you off the hook. The one I love is Hope. No one is allowed to make her sad, understand? The pressure on her neck gradually increased. Sylvia's face turned red, and she nodded vigorously. Only then did Julian release her. She gasped for air, her head bowed to hide the emotion in her eyes. When she looked up again, she was wearing a bewitching smile. She wrapped her arms around Julian's neck. After the party's over, let's go back to my place. The choking was intense, but it was kind of hot. Julian's breathing grew heavy. His earlier anger was quickly overtaken by lust. You little hussy, you really know how to play. That was exactly what he liked about her, what made her so irresistible. He could never be so rough or kinky with Hope, but Sylvia was different. She was always coming up with new tricks that he found endlessly thrilling. By the time Julian returned home, sated, it was the middle of the night. He assumed Hope would be asleep, but he saw the light was on in the bedroom. Thinking Hope had stayed up waiting for him, a wave of joy washed over him. But when he pushed open the door, the floor was covered with clothes packed into bags of all sizes. Wifey, what are you doing? Julian froze, frantically putting down the late-night snack he'd brought and grabbing my shoulders, terrified of hearing the answer he dreaded. The seasons are changing, aren't they? I'm just packing up the old season's things and throwing out useless old stuff. Why are you so nervous? My calm, reasonable explanation made Julian's heart settle back into his chest. Oh, good. You didn't eat dinner and had low blood sugar, so I bought you your favorite cake. Julian handed the cake to me. I didn't refuse it. I went to the dining table and started eating. I was indeed hungry. Julian went to the bathroom to shower. I opened Sylvia's social media. As expected, her private story was updated. The 99th time I tasted a cherry from the cake, it was sour and bitter. Then, I gave Sylvia's post a like. Chapter 9. Back in the room, I was silent in the face of Julian's affectionate embrace. He asked me what was wrong. I suddenly miss my mom and dad. Before the wedding, I want to take you to see them one more time. My parents had been dead for years, and Julian accompanied me to pay respects at their graves every Memorial Day. We had already been this year, but my reason was plausible, and Julian, his heart aching for me, stroked my long hair and agreed. Okay, we'll go tomorrow. Julian kissed my forehead gently and held me as we fell asleep, without doing anything more. The sky was gray, with heavy, dark clouds that looked as if they were about to swallow the entire city. Julian carried 2 bags of offerings as we entered the cemetery. He began arranging them before the tombstones, just as we did every year. After setting up the offerings, just as Julian was about to kneel and pay his respects, that special ringtone, the one for Sylvia, rang out again. He glanced at me guiltily, then turned his back to the tombstones to answer the call. Hearing the news from the other end, he couldn't help but exclaim, "What? How is that possible?" I looked at him indifferently. Realizing his outburst, Julian quickly lowered his voice, whispered a few words, and hung up. He paced back and forth anxiously. Finally, he turned to me. "Wifey, something urgent has come up with a project at work. I have to go. This project is really important. Is it more important than my mom and dad?" I didn't turn around, my cold voice reaching his ears. He gritted his teeth, his fists clenched, but he had made his decision. He apologized to me. "I'm so sorry, but this is truly an emergency. Next time, I promise I'll pay my respects to mom and dad properly." Julian tried to hug me, but I dodged him. I stared at him with a blank expression that made his heart tremble, and he couldn't meet my gaze. Julian, tell me, is it really a work emergency? If it is, my parents would surely understand. If it's not, you don't have to lie to me. Julian denied it vehemently. How could I ever lie to you? Be good. I promise I'll come with you next time and we'll pay our respects properly. We'll buy the best offerings for them. After speaking, Julian checked the time, gave me a quick, hurried hug, and drove away. He left me standing there alone in front of the graves, holding a bouquet of gardenias. A notification sound came from my phone. I opened it. It was a message from Sylvia. This was the first time we had ever chatted. It was a picture of a sonogram report showing the fetus was already 8 weeks old. Hope, he loves you so much, so why is it that after 7 years together, I'm the one who's pregnant? Oh, right, we're about to have our 100th time together. Honestly, he's so impatient, even when I'm pregnant. Sylvia's private story was updated accordingly. She left a triumphant comment. The 100th time, a clap of thunder rumbled from the dark clouds. A drizzle began to fall, wetting my phone screen, drenching my entire body. I knelt before my parents' graves, choking out their names. Dad, Mom, I miss you so much. The boy who once loved me so deeply, the boy who protected me completely, where did he go? Mom, I'm sorry, I'm not doing well. I've made you worry. My anguished sobs were drowned out by the patter of the rain. I felt like I was drowning in a vast, tumultuous sea with no one to save me. You've betrayed me 100 times. It's time for me to leave you for good. Chapter 10. For the next few days, Julian claimed to be on a business trip and didn't come home. It wasn't until the night before the wedding that he said he would rush back in the morning and wouldn't miss it. Wifey, I can finally give you the grand wedding you deserve. Julian didn't know that his wish would never come true. As he was returning, I was about to leave. During the days Julian was gone, Sylvia was practically live streaming their affair, from the initial sonogram to videos of their various sexual escapades. She relished the feeling of having conquered the man who had once rejected her. But no matter how much she flaunted it, no matter how much she humiliated me, I felt nothing anymore. The next morning at 5 a.m., 7 hours before the wedding was set to begin, Julian hadn't come home. He went straight to the hotel where the wedding was being held, changed into his groom's suit, and began inspecting the venue's decorations. He went over the filming schedule with the photographers again and again, nitpicking every detail, striving to create a perfect wedding for me and for himself. Meanwhile, staff from the agency arrived at the house to take away my packed luggage. They meticulously erased every trace of my existence in that home and handed me the forged leukemia report. At 6 a.m., the makeup artist and bridesmaids arrived to help me get ready. Everyone praised me as the most beautiful bride. Then, we all got into the wedding car and headed for the hotel. At 8:30 a.m., the groomsmen were supposed to join Julian in his room for the traditional door games, but Julian suddenly left, claiming an urgent work matter. He said he would be back before the ceremony started, canceling the games. While the bridesmaids were anxious and annoyed, I remained completely calm. I knew he had gone to be with his other love. Sylvia's feed had just updated with a photo of her in a wedding dress. It was the exact same style as mine, only hers revealed more of her chest. As Julian left in his groom's suit to go fool around with Sylvia, I stood on the hotel balcony and watched his back. This would be the one and only time he and I would be a groom and a bride. It was also his last chance to see me, but he didn't cherish it. Our 7 years had been romantic and unforgettable. In these last 7 hours before leaving him, I felt an immense sense of relief. At 10:30 a.m., I made an excuse about feeling unwell and quietly slipped away. I listed our house on the internet for $9.99. His car and computer, too, all for $9.99. These were the terms stipulated in the divorce agreement Julian had signed. All his fixed assets were now under my name for me to dispose of as I wished. To do this to the groom on the wedding day, I must be the first bride in history. At 11:30 a.m., in a car arranged by the agency, I arrived at the port and boarded a cruise ship bound for Antarctica. I had already changed out of the wedding dress in the car, swapping it for a comfortable, casual tracksuit. The cruise ship slowly pulled away from the port. The wind whipped my long hair around my face, and with it, all the pain and sorrow of the past days were blown back to the city I would never return to. Gazing at the vast, clear blue ocean, I stood at the edge of the deck and screamed my lungs out, attracting stares from other tourists. I didn't care. After I was done, a smile of pure relief spread across my face. At 12 p.m., I sent the divorce agreement, the leukemia report, and all the evidence of Julian's infidelity to our old high school group chat. I then instructed the agency to disseminate all the materials online, making sure to tag Julian's company in every post. I sent Julian an extra package, screenshots of his private chats and Sylvia's secret posts. After doing all that, I turned off my phone. The cruise set sail, carrying me toward a desolate continent of ice and snow. I remembered a Valentine's Day early in our relationship when it didn't snow. Julian had been so frustrated that he insisted on driving us north overnight just to see the snow. It was because he believed in the old saying, "If we are one day covered by the same snow, we can be considered to have grown old together." Julian, even if we were covered by the same snow in this life, we will never grow old together. Your 101st betrayal is one I will never have to see. Julian Forrester, we will never meet again. Chapter 11. Sylvia rose shyly from Julian's lap and helped him fix his belt and zipper. The thrill of doing something like this right before the wedding left Julian sighing in satisfaction. Seeing that time was running short, he straightened his disheveled clothes and prepared to drive back to the hotel. "In such a hurry? Aren't you going to stay with me a little longer?" Sylvia looked at him resentfully, her fingertips hooking his belt and swinging it playfully. Julian's phone was dead. He glanced at his watch. The wedding was set to start in less than half an hour. He irritably shook her hand off. "Don't mess around. Today is my wedding with Hope. You go home and take care of the baby. I'll come see you tomorrow." The thought of finally marrying the girl he'd fallen for at first sight 7 years ago brought an unconscious smile to his face. Even though Hope wouldn't be angry if he was late for the wedding, he couldn't violate his own principles. He wanted to give Hope and himself the best wedding possible. "But I'll be so bored at home alone. Take me with you. I promise I'll be good and won't disturb you." Sylvia clung to Julian's arm, deliberately rubbing her soft chest against him. Julian's cold expression began to melt, and he finally relented, agreeing to take her to the hotel. "Sorry I'm late, where's Hope? Get her over here, let's start the ceremony." As he burst into the venue with Sylvia in tow, Julian suddenly realized something was wrong. All the guests were staring at him with contempt. They were whispering and pointing at him and Sylvia. A sense of panic seized Julian's heart. His voice rose. "What are you all doing? Where is my wife? Get her over here, the wedding is about to start." Holly, standing nearby, heard this and walked up to him with a cold smile, looking at him with disdain. "You have the nerve to ask. Did you think to look for her when you were fooling around with Sylvia? And where were you when she was diagnosed with leukemia? Oh, I forgot. You were probably at the OB-GYN, enjoying the thrill of becoming a father, right? We were so blind. We actually envied Hope for having such a wonderful man. Turns out my guy is better than you." Holly's blunt words made Julian's face cloud over. He forced a smile. "Is this some kind of prank you've arranged for the wedding? It's not funny. Get Hope out here. What leukemia? That's ridiculous." Seeing that Julian wouldn't face reality, Holly's anger flared. She was about to pull out her phone to show him the proof. Just then, the doors to the hall burst open, and a group of men in suits filed in. The two men in the lead were carrying a giant black and white portrait. The person in the photo was Hope. Julian stared blankly as they walked toward him. It wasn't until he clearly saw the person in the photo that he snapped back to reality, roaring in fury. "What kind of sick prank is this? Get out, I'm calling my lawyer." The men were unfazed. One of them stepped forward and smiled faintly at him. "You must be Mr. Forrester. Miss Gardner requested that after her cremation, her ashes be handed over to you. Please, bury her next to her parents." Julian's anger boiled over. Veins bulged on his forehead as he threw a punch at the man's face. "I'll make you eat those words, I'll kill you." The man, unfazed by the punch, skillfully kicked Julian to the ground and threw a stack of documents in his face. "If Mr. Forrester still can't see clearly after reading these documents, we'll have to borrow the venue's big screen." Before Julian could react, the large screen, originally intended for the wedding video, lit up. Countless obscene photos began to play in a slideshow. Julian, who had been about to get up and fight back, seemed to lose all his strength and collapsed to the floor in a heap. These were all his and Sylvia's sex photos. Chapter 12. Julian's face was deathly pale as he struggled to explain. No, none of this is real, they must be photoshopped. He tried to use this excuse, but the next moment, the big screen displayed screenshots of the chat history between Sylvia and Hope. 101 times. Even on your wedding day, he had to sneak out to be with me. Hope, I'm really curious, just how bad are you in bed? The timestamp was noon, right when Hope had boarded the cruise ship. There's really no point in having this wedding. His body and soul are with me. All you have is a marriage certificate. If you have any consideration for Julian's child, you should just divorce him. Stop wasting everyone's time. Fine, you can have the wedding. That was Hope's reply. Julian stared at the chat screenshots, his eyes turning bloodshot. He knelt on the floor, clutching the carpet so tightly his knuckles turned white. He wanted to say something, but all that came out was the pained howl of a wild animal. No, this is impossible. Where's Hope? I need to explain to her she'll forgive me. Where is she? Take me to her. Julian struggled to his feet, grabbing one of the staff members by the shoulders and shaking him violently. The staff member glanced at his colleagues. From behind the two men holding the funeral portrait, another staff member slowly emerged, holding an urn. He handed the box to Julian. Miss Gardner was cremated half an hour ago. Our condolences. That single sentence was the final straw that broke Julian. He stood frozen as if struck by lightning, not reaching out to take the urn. He just kept muttering, "You're lying to me, you're lying to me." Mr. Forrester, if you refuse to carry out Miss Gardner's final wish, considering you and Miss Gardner are no longer married, our agency will handle Miss Gardner's funeral services ourselves. Give it to me. Julian immediately snatched the urn, clutching it to his chest as he broke down, tears falling onto the lid. Wait, when did we get a divorce? I never agreed to it. Julian snapped back to his senses, roaring his question at the staff. The staff member picked up the documents from the floor and handed them to Julian. Among them was the divorce agreement, clearly bearing both his and Hope's signatures. He suddenly remembered Hope's birthday, the day she had asked him to sign the property transfer contract. So, she had known about his infidelity all along. She had been planning to leave him for a long time. But why? Why didn't she give him a chance to make amends? Why did she leave so decisively? He knelt on the floor, curled into a ball, and sobbed like a child. His wails echoed through the hall. The guests, who had initially been furious, now felt a twinge of pity and began to leave one by one. After what felt like an eternity of crying, Sylvia cautiously called out his name. "Julian, are you okay?" The crying stopped. Julian stood up in a daze and, without acknowledging Sylvia, started walking forward, head down. He gently kissed the urn, a faint smile on his lips. "Wifey, don't be scared. I'm taking you home now." Just then, Eleanor Forrester, Julian's mother, was helped over from a corner of the hall by a staff member. The earlier scene had caused her to faint, and seeing her son in this state was more than she could bear. "Julian, come back. Have you forgotten about Sylvia and your child?" Julian's steps faltered. He looked at the panicked Sylvia and said coldly, "The child isn't as important as her. This bitch killed Hope. She deserves to die too." Seeing his heartlessness, Sylvia became desperate. She grabbed a fruit knife from a table and held it to her wrist, staring at him intently. "Fine, I know you blame me, but the child is innocent. If you despise us so much that you'd rather go be with a dead person, then I'll just die too. Let's see who you'll choose." Chapter 13. If you want to die, then go die. No one's stopping you. To Sylvia's astonishment, Julian completely ignored her threat and started to walk away again. How could this be? Wasn't he the one who would drop everything and run to her side whenever she called, leaving Hope behind? In his heart, Hope was supposed to be nothing more than a figurehead, a wife in name only. She was the one who spent every night with him. She was the mother of his child. On what grounds would he not choose her? Sylvia gritted her teeth and pressed the knife down, drawing blood. The moment Eleanor saw this, she rushed forward and blocked Julian's path. A loud slap landed on Julian's face. Eleanor screamed at him. "I don't care what kind of mess you've made, but you listen to me. Hope is dead, and even before she died, she was no longer a daughter-in-law of the Forrester family. You will marry Sylvia Shaw right now. She is the mother of your child. And don't let me ever see you lose your mind over a dead person again." Julian looked at his mother in disbelief, but before he could argue, Eleanor cried out, clutching her heart as she collapsed. On the other side, Sylvia also fainted, blood pooling around her. Julian's hand, clutching the urn, was white from the force of his grip. In the end, he turned back, carried both women to his car, and headed for the hospital. "Did you get all of that?" The lead staff member suddenly turned and asked his assistant. The assistant nodded, removing a pinhole camera from his chest and handing it over. "Excellent. Now, send the video to Miss Gardner. Our mission is almost complete." Eleanor and Sylvia were rushed into the emergency room. Julian sat outside the operating room, flipping through the stack of documents. He read through the thick divorce agreement, the leukemia report, and the chat history between Hope and Sylvia. The process of how Hope's heart had turned to ash, leading to her decision to leave, played out before him like a film. On Hope's birthday, he had been enjoying Sylvia in her new lingerie, forgot to order a cake, and bought a random one as a substitute. During their wedding photo shoot, he had been lured away by Sylvia's black stockings, leaving Hope alone at the studio, and never thought to reschedule. At the class reunion, he and Sylvia were trying new positions in the men's room while Hope, suffering from low blood sugar, had to take a cab home by herself. When Hope asked him to pay respects to her parents, he worried about Sylvia's pregnancy and lied to her face in front of her parents' graves before leaving at so many important moments. He had lost his mind and been with another woman. Tears dripped onto the reports in his hands. He sat outside the operating room, sobbing uncontrollably. A passing nurse thought he was worried about Eleanor and Sylvia and tried to comfort him. "It's okay, you brought them in just in time. They're both going to be fine." But all she heard was Julian clutching his hair, crying out in agony, she's dead, it's all useless now." All the while, he held tightly to the small urn. "Wifey, don't be angry, I'll take you home soon." Chapter 14. Neither of their surgeries took long. Sylvia had only lost some blood. Her wound just needed to be bandaged. She had faked fainting. Eleanor, however, had suffered a heart attack and needed to be hospitalized for a while to recover. Julian sat by her bed, day after day, clutching the urn and talking to himself, which infuriated Sylvia to no end. Does Julian love her or Hope? How could she, pregnant with his child, be losing to a dead woman? "Julian, how's your mom? I heard from the doctor that she should eat soft foods for the next couple of days, so I made some porridge." She had deliberately left the bandage on her hand and approached Julian timidly. Lost in his monologue, Julian ignored her. Sylvia cursed Hope under her breath for bewitching him and called his name again, her voice soft. "Julian, this porridge?" Before Sylvia could react, Julian slapped the insulated container, sending scalding hot porridge splashing all over her. She screamed, "It's so hot, Julian. What are you doing?" Her arms and legs were red from the burns. Sylvia couldn't help but shout at Julian, but she regretted it instantly. Ever since she started seducing him, she had always maintained a gentle, seductive demeanor. Now she had shot herself in the foot, but Julian just sneered, grabbing her wrist and squeezing it tightly. Her face turned pale, and she begged for mercy in pain. "Julian, my wound hasn't healed yet." But Julian's eyes were filled only with rage, devoid of the lust he used to have for her. "Why did you post those things? Why? Didn't I tell you that if she found out about us, I wouldn't let you off? It was you killed her. What right do you have to keep on living?" The wound on her wrist split open again, and fresh blood stained the white bandage. Tears streamed down Sylvia's face. She clutched her stomach, looking at Julian with tear-filled eyes. "Julian, I really didn't mean to. I just wanted a family for our child so badly. I never thought she would do something like that just because of a few posts. And I didn't know she had leukemia. Julian, please, she's already gone. Shouldn't you cherish the person who's right in front of you?" As she cried, she deliberately twisted her body, causing a loose shoulder strap to fall, revealing her full, pale breast to Julian's eyes. From what she knew of Julian, he loved her voluptuous figure. He would surely be moved by desire and forgive her. But she hadn't considered that this was his mother's hospital room, and Julian, having just lost his wife, was in no mood for such things. Julian looked at the body that had once driven him wild with desire, and now he felt only endless regret and resentment. He shoved Sylvia against the wall and wrapped one hand around her neck, ignoring her struggles. "Cherish you? What the hell are you? You're just a cheap trollop who I rejected in front of the whole school. who came crawling back to me without a shred of shame. What makes you think you can compare to her? You and that bastard in your belly can go to hell and atone for what you did to her." Sylvia had never imagined that the man who had once doted on her could be so ruthless, that he actually wanted her dead. She struggled and begged desperately, but her pleas only earned her a tighter grip from Julian. After crying her eyes out, Sylvia suddenly stopped begging and started laughing maniacally. This made Julian frown, and the pressure on her neck loosened slightly. "What are you laughing at?" Sylvia looked at him mockingly. "I'm laughing at how stupid you are, thinking I destroyed your relationship and drove her to her death. The truth is, Julian Forrester, the person who killed her was you." Chapter 15. You're talking nonsense." Julian's face went white, and his grip on her neck tightened again. "Haha, and you still won't admit it. Julian, it's true that you rejected my public confession in front of the whole school. But later, you were the one who saw my dance video and sought me out to catch up. You slept with me once, and after that, you couldn't stop. Whatever I wanted, you bought for me. Whenever, wherever, even when you were with Hope, if I called you over for a romp, you would drop her and come running to me. And my child, that's the result of you doing it with me 100 times and breaking a condom. Did I force you, Julian? This is all your own doing now you've killed your own wife, and you want to kill me and your child too." Julian's face twisted in a hideous grimace. He wanted to argue, but he couldn't. After all, it was all true. But if he didn't hate Sylvia, he would have no one to hate but himself. "That's enough." Julian let her go. Alina had woken up at some point and was now shouting anxiously, trying to stop him. Seeing his mother awake, Julian finally released Sylvia and walked to Alina's bedside. "Mom, how are you?" He had barely reached her bed when a slap landed across his face. Alina's hand was trembling as she pointed at him. "You unfilial son, I'm telling you, from now on, Sylvia Shaw is your wife. If you dare treat her like that again, I won't go on living either." Julian was unwilling, but seeing his mother's stern gaze, he swallowed his anger and sat down in a corner, clutching the urn. Having narrowly escaped, Sylvia scrambled over to Alina's side, terrified that Julian would have another fit and try to kill her. "Don't be afraid. As long as you safely give birth to our family's child, I will protect you." Alina stroked Sylvia's slightly bulging belly, a smile appearing on her face. Hope and Julian had been together for 7 years, but had only married 6 months ago, a fact she had always been dissatisfied with. Now, learning that Hope had died of leukemia, she was actually relieved they had divorced before her death. A woman with such bad luck would only bring misfortune into the family. Only Julian stared intently at Sylvia's stomach. The child. If it weren't for this child, none of this would have happened. Just as malice began to brew in his heart, his phone, now fully charged, finally turned on. A flood of messages and calls nearly crashed it. Julian stared at his chat with Hope, at the evidence she had forwarded of his trysts with Sylvia, and his heart twisted in pain. But he had no time for sorrow. The company chairman was calling. His heart tightened as he answered. "Julian Forrester, if you don't want to work, then get the hell out of my company. Look at what you've done to the company's stock price." He listened, stunned, as the chairman explained the whole situation. The story of him cheating with Sylvia and driving his leukemic wife to her death had been spread all over the internet by the agency. Countless netizens were cursing him and Sylvia. As the company's general manager, his scandal had caused numerous deals to fall through, leading to a sharp drop in the stock price. The board of directors had decided to strip him of all his positions, but all his assets had been signed over to Hope in the divorce agreement. If he lost this job, he would have no way to support his mother and Sylvia. While Julian was drowning in his troubles, the cruise ship carrying Hope had already left Antarctica and was on its way back. But Hope didn't choose to return to her home country. Instead, she settled in Singapore. Though she had been supported by Julian all those years, she had never given up on her dream of starting her own business. But Julian would only give her money to spend. He never approved of her working. Now, with her new life, she used her savings to open a flower shop. By offering beautiful flowers at fair prices and teaching free weekly flower arrangement classes, her shop quickly gained popularity and established itself in the city. Ting ting! A man's cool, deep voice sounded from behind her. The students listening to Hope's flower arrangement class all started teasing them in unison. Hope told them off good-naturedly, telling them to stop messing around and practice properly. But by the time she walked over to Caspian Hale, a blush had already crept up her cheeks. "Senior, what are you doing here?" Chapter 16. "To take you to pick up some flowers." Caspian Hale suddenly reached a hand toward the top of her head. I flinched back, which drew a helpless smile from him. 3 months had passed since I had left the icy world of Antarctica for the warm, tropical climate of Singapore. I was gradually getting used to the life and climate here, but I still wasn't used to Caspian's proximity. When I first arrived in Singapore, I was lost and disoriented. I even fainted on the street from not being acclimated. It was Caspian who had taken me to the hospital and cared for me meticulously. He had rented one of his vacant houses to me and used his family's botanical garden business to help me open my flower shop, slowly helping me find my place in this unfamiliar city. I was very grateful to him and could sense the unspoken feelings simmering beneath the surface. But that 7-year relationship had left me so broken. I felt like my heart had been frozen solid in Antarctica, unable to open up to anyone else. If Julian, who had loved me so deeply, could cheat and betray me, I didn't dare to trust anyone again. So, we maintained an unspoken understanding, remaining just friends. The only exception was the nickname Ting Ting, which was Caspian's way of being close. "You've wanted that new variety of orchid for a long time, haven't you? The National Orchid Garden just got a batch in, and I managed to get a few plants for you. If we go now, we can still make it." I beamed with joy. I quickly gave my students some instructions and then hurried Caspian along. I heard that new variety is extremely difficult to cultivate. I thought I'd never be able to get it. Thank you. The taste and scent of this newly cultivated variety had captivated me, but the number of available plants was so limited that a small shop like mine couldn't possibly hope to get one. "As long as you like it." Caspian led me into the National Orchid Garden. He carefully moved the pots from the staff's hands into his car and then transported them to the garden in my yard. "Senior, please stay for dinner." Caspian had done all the heavy lifting, and seeing him sweating, I felt too embarrassed to just let him leave. Caspian didn't refuse. "I only remember that you used to love my mom's homemade seafood stew. I'm not sure if your tastes have changed." The seafood hot pot in front of him was fragrant and appetizing. Caspian smiled and picked up a small octopus, praising the taste as soon as he ate it. "It's delicious. So many years, and you've become a master chef." My eyes sparkled and a small smile played on my lips. We ate seafood and chatted, and before we knew it, night had fallen. A notification popped up on my phone. There would be a Gemini meteor shower at 8 p.m. tonight. Caspian suggested we go up to the roof to watch. I was a bit scared climbing the stairs, so Caspian took my hand and pulled me up. In the dark night sky, one bright meteor after another streaked across the darkness, like a fine rain showering the earth. I opened my eyes and turned to ask him what he had wished for, but I found that he had been watching me the whole time without making a wish. I asked him why he hadn't wished for anything. He just smiled and said nothing. Chapter 17. After the meteor shower, I didn't ask Caspian to stay the night, but watched him leave. Lying in bed, I scrolled through my phone. The agency staff now sent me regular updates on Julian and Sylvia's situation. Julian Forrester has been fired from his company. He is currently sending out resumes everywhere with no luck. He is attempting to secure an opportunity by attending the Sterling heiress's birthday party. Sylvia Shaw's pregnancy is unstable. She has been on bed rest at home and seems to have had multiple conflicts with a leaner Forrester. I read these messages with a heart completely devoid of emotion. When I first turned on my phone after returning from Antarctica, I had received the video of Julian's meltdown at the wedding. Before my trip, I might have felt a sense of triumph. But after spending days in that world of ice and snow, standing before giant glaciers and the vast ocean, I felt so small. The pain that had once tormented me vanished like a puff of smoke. I would no longer be moved by it, but I would never forgive him either. The next morning, I went downstairs to find Caspian in the backyard, transplanting the orchids for me. Feeling grateful, I decided to make him a glass of juice from the juicer in the shop. But when I got there, I heard a loud knocking on the door. It wasn't opening time yet, but considering it might be an emergency, I opened the door. To my surprise, the moment the door opened, a fleshy-faced, middle-aged woman started screaming at me. So you are a vixen, no wonder you didn't dare open the door. Speak, what kind of love potion did you give my husband? I was stunned, looking at the cowering man behind the woman. I remembered him. He came to my flower arrangement class every week. I hadn't expected this kind of misunderstanding. I tried to calm the woman down. Ma'am, you've misunderstood. He just comes to my flower arrangement class. I'm sure it was to give you flowers. But my words were like pouring oil on a fire. She grabbed her husband's ear with a ferocious expression. You have the nerve to say that. Did you come for the class, or for the lady boss? Speak up. What kind of respectable flower shop sells flowers with aphrodisiac effects? Only a shameless woman like you would do something like this. I'm going to let everyone see what kind of flowers this shop owner is really selling. The woman's voice was loud, attracting a crowd of curious onlookers. My heart tightened. I wanted to communicate with her properly, but she ignored me and started smashing the flowers in the shop. These flowers were the result of my daily, meticulous care. Seeing them being destroyed like this, my eyes reddened and I stepped forward to stop her. But the woman was large and strong, and I was no match for her. In the scuffle, I was shoved hard and fell onto several cacti. The sharp spines pricked my arms, drawing tiny beads of blood. Ting Ting, Caspian, who had finished transplanting the orchids in the backyard, heard the commotion and rushed to the front, arriving just in time to see me get hurt. He anxiously scooped me into his arms. As he moved the cacti away, I winced in pain. Aha, so you have a loverboy. Neither of you is getting away today. The woman was momentarily taken aback by the handsome Caspian, but she remained relentless, demanding an explanation. I bit my lip, my face pale. I clutched Caspian's collar and shook my head. I didn't want him to get involved in this mess. Caspian said nothing. He looked at my wounds, his gaze darkening. His sharp demeanor forced the woman to take a step back. Destruction of property, assault, and defamation. These will result in criminal charges as well as civil liabilities. The minimum sentence is 2 years in prison and a substantial fine. Chapter 18. You have no proof. Don't try to scare me. The woman's body was trembling, but she tried to put on a brave face. The security camera footage from the shop is the best evidence, and her injuries. It's too late for regrets now. I have your face on camera, and I will be pressing charges. Without another word to the woman or her husband, Caspian carried me to his car and drove to the hospital. Perhaps I had hit my head during the fall. I felt dizzy, and Caspian's embrace was warm and comfortable. I drifted off to sleep without realizing it. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. My arm was wrapped in thick gauze, and the pain had subsided. You're awake. Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere else? Caspian had been dozing by my bedside and woke up instantly at my movement. I'm fine, much better. This doesn't require a hospital stay. I've troubled you so much, I should go home. Seeing Caspian looking a bit worn out, I felt guilty for troubling him again. It's okay. You can go home after the checkup confirms you don't have a concussion. Caspian smiled, but his gaze fell on my bandaged left arm, and his expression turned cold again. I've already reported it to the police. Those two have been detained. The next step is to file a lawsuit. The flower that supposedly had an aphrodisiac effect has also been investigated. It turns out her husband had secretly bought a potion and added it to the flower. He was planning to use it on you when you were alone in the shop, but his wife found out first. Don't worry, I'll make them both pay. Looking at his determined eyes, I was suddenly reminded of how Julian had protected me from the bullies back then. That was because he had confessed his feelings to me the day before, and someone had bullied me out of spite, which made him furious. But before we were together, when I was falsely accused of stealing someone's living expenses or bullied by jealous girls, he would just walk past with his friends, turning a blind eye. Not to mention how he always abandoned me after he got involved with Sylvia. 7 years of that relationship had almost made me forget everything. After we got together, I only remembered the good things about him. But Caspian would help me without any conditions. He cared about me, Hope, as a person. Whether I loved him back or not didn't matter. Ting Ting, what's wrong? Does it hurt a lot? Tears dripped down, soaking the gauze. Caspian panicked and was about to get a nurse, but I grabbed his hand. Caspian's cheeks flushed and he stopped. This was the first time I had ever held his hand. It's nothing, I just don't know how to thank you. I'm so lucky to have had you here during this time. I leaned my head on Caspian's shoulder, releasing all the pressure that had built up for so long. I don't know how much time passed before I fell asleep. Caspian let me lean on him, half hugging me, not minding that one side of his body had gone numb. When we woke up the next day, we were noticeably closer than before. The checkup showed no other injuries. I just needed to change the dressing on my arm regularly. So, under the pretext of helping me change the dressing, Caspian moved in with me, taking care of my meals and daily needs. One day, after he had finished dressing my wound, he was delighted to find that the scabs had fallen off, revealing new skin underneath. "It's good that there's no scar. I should be heading back to my home country now." Caspian gently stroked my arm, his reluctant gaze making me blush. But I quickly asked in confusion, "Back to your home country? Haven't your family been living in Singapore for almost 10 years? Why the sudden trip back?" Caspian patted my head and smiled gently. "The Sterling Corporation's heiress is having her birthday. Our parents arranged an engagement for us a long time ago. I think it's time to break it off." Then, as if remembering something, his eyes suddenly turned cold. "And then, there's Julian Forrester. I want to see what he's up to and get some payback for you." I was a little dazed. I had never imagined that Caspian wouldn't mind my 7-year history with Julian and would even help me get revenge. "It's okay, it's all in the past. I had a new life now. I didn't care how Julian was doing." But Caspian pressed a light kiss to the back of my hand and said solemnly, "Ting Ting, I will never let you get hurt again. And I won't let the people who hurt you live comfortably. Especially the one who hurt me the most." Chapter 19. Outside the Sterling family's estate, Julian and Sylvia got out of the car. She tried to take his arm, but he heartlessly shook her off. Julian walked ahead briskly on his own. Sylvia, with her large belly, couldn't walk fast. She could only endure the mocking stares and whispers of the people around them as she followed behind him. She clutched her stomach, fighting back the bitter tears. Ever since their affair was exposed online by the agency, Julian had been fired, and her beauty blogger account had been mobbed by netizens. People relentlessly called her a shameless homewrecker who had driven the original wife to her death. With no source of income and their house sold for $9.99 by Hope, she and Julian were forced to live in the old Forrester family house. Every night, Julian would come home drunk and give her the cold shoulder. Eleanor Forrester couldn't stand her princess attitude and forced her to do housework and serve them, even while pregnant. If it weren't for the baby in her belly, she wouldn't even have a roof over her head or food to eat. So the once seductive and pampered woman had become haggard and submissive, enduring everything. Even though Julian had only gone through a wedding ceremony with her and never legally married her, she didn't dare say a word. She used to think that if she could just get rid of Hope, she would become Mrs. Forrester and enjoy a life of luxury. She would have everything she ever wanted. But now, she stood there in a rented dress, trailing behind Julian like a servant. Someone stared at her belly, asking with a smirk what position she'd used to get pregnant. Julian acted as if he hadn't heard, leaving her to face the humiliation alone. After entering the banquet hall, Julian ordered her to stay in a corner and not to bother him. Caspian walked over with 2 glasses of wine and handed one to Julian. They had been casual acquaintances in the same social circles, so Julian accepted it and downed it in one go. "When are you planning to get engaged to Anna Sterling?" Julian asked. Caspian let out a couple of chuckles. "I'm not. I'm already in love with someone else." Julian tried to scan the crowd for Victor Sterling. That was his main goal for the evening, to get a second chance from him. But for some reason, his vision started to blur. He rubbed his eyes several times before it cleared. As he searched the crowd for Victor Sterling again, he froze as if struck by lightning. He had seen the face that haunted his dreams. It was Hope. He went berserk, shoving people aside as he rushed toward Hope. Amidst her panic screams, he grabbed her and held her tight, kissing her madly. "Hope, you're finally back. I knew you wouldn't die. You couldn't let me go, right? I'll never let you go this time. Let's go home. You don't like Sylvia? That's fine. I'll kick her out right now." Not far away, Sylvia, drawn by the commotion, heard Julian's words and bit her lip hard. She had thought that if she was obedient, served Eleanor well, and took care of him, he would eventually change his mind, legally marry her, and build a real family with her. But he was still obsessed with that dead woman, Hope. He had even gotten drunk and mistaken Anna Sterling for her. Wasn't their life miserable enough already? Julian, are you insane? That's Anna Sterling. The Sterling heiress Hope has been dead for 100 days. What's wrong with you? Sylvia tried to pull them apart, but Julian kicked her away. Get lost, don't you dare curse my Hope, she's right here, I finally found her, and I'm never letting go. Get out of the Forrester house, we're through. Sylvia fell to the ground in a heap. She watched as security guards struggled to pull Julian away, but he held on with an inexplicable strength. Finally, under the guards' blows, Julian's grip loosened for a second, and they managed to pull Anna away. No, wifey, don't you dare take her from me. Julian tried to chase after her, but Sylvia grabbed his ankle, begging him desperately. Julian, wake up, Hope is dead, I'm your wife. Get off me. Seeing Sylvia repeatedly blocking him, Julian, in a fit of rage, started kicking her. Sylvia clutched her stomach as he kicked her all the way to the edge of the second-floor landing, where she tumbled down the stairs. She rolled to a stop on the floor, blood seeping from between her legs. My baby, Chapter 20. Sylvia's horrific state threw the party into chaos. Julian didn't even glance at her as he chased after Anna Sterling. But he didn't catch Anna. He caught her father, Victor Sterling. Beat this brat to death, how dare he bully my daughter. He's leaving this place horizontally today. At Victor Sterling's furious command, the security guards relentlessly beat Julian. Even with a bruised and battered face, covered in wounds, he kept muttering, "Wifey, come home with me." Ultimately, Victor didn't want a death at his daughter's birthday party. After Julian was beaten unconscious, he had the servants send the couple off in an ambulance. The party guests hadn't expected such a dramatic show. With the hosts gone, they started gossiping. Has Julian Forrester actually gone insane? To molest Anna Sterling, one word from her and his career is over for good. A socialite next to them covered her mouth and giggled. If you ask me, the baby that little mistress is carrying probably isn't even his. Plus, he drove his own wife to her death. That's probably why he's lost his mind. Other guests chimed in. Exactly. He destroyed his own perfectly good family, and now that she's dead, he's putting on this show of being deeply in love. He must have been drunk and mistaken Anna for Hope. Well, he got what he deserved. Knowing Victor Sterling's temper, there won't be a place left for him in this entire city. Mingling in the crowd and enjoying the drama, Caspian swirled the wine in his glass and smiled. The drug he had used caused intense hallucinations. He had only intended to make Julian embarrass himself, but he never expected him to mistake Anna for Hope. This was even better. It saved him the trouble of any further schemes. A few days later, Hope received the news. Julian had been blacklisted from the entire industry for harassing the Sterling heiress. Sylvia's baby had been lost. Eleanor Forrester was nowhere to be found. Hope hadn't expected Julian to go so mad as to mistake Anna for her. After her death, what was the point of all these dramatic displays of affection? It only brought harm to himself and others. The news disgusted her. Wanting to change the subject, she asked Caspian about his engagement. It went smoothly. Anna developed a fear of men because of Julian's psychotic episode and confessed to her dad that she likes women. Mr. Sterling had no choice. He was furious, but he had to agree to dissolve the engagement. But now that I'm not engaged, I have to worry about where to find a wife. Do you have any suggestions? Caspian's tone was a little flirty. My face turned beet red and I finally mumbled, I don't know. Maybe, if you buy a bouquet from a certain flower shop, you might have a chance. After hanging up, I felt a pang of regret. What had possessed me to say something like that? Was I really ready to start a new relationship? As I was lost in my thoughts, the bell on the shop door jingled. Welcome, what kind of flowers can I get for you today? I went to greet the customer, but the sight of the person made me freeze, my expression turning grim. Hope, it really is you. The visitor was none other than Julian's mother, Eleanor Forrester. Chapter 21. Auntie, how did you find me here? My expression was hard, completely devoid of warmth, which made Eleanor's heart sink. I saw a video online. A woman was bullying you in your shop. Hope, look at you, a young woman all alone out here, with no one to rely on. It's so pitiful. Julian has changed. He won't let that jinx Sylvia back into the house. They never even got legally married. Hope, please come back. We all miss you so much. Eleanor pleaded earnestly, trying to use her haggard, aged appearance to soften my heart. But I had endured too many betrayals. I felt nothing. I said flatly, Auntie, I'm doing very well here. You should go back. She seemed completely unprepared for me, the once obedient girl, to refuse her. Alina froze, and then, to my utter astonishment, she fell to her knees with a thud. "Auntie, what are you doing?" My expression changed. I rushed to help her up, but her legs seemed glued to the floor. "Hope you won't even call me mom anymore. I don't blame you. It's all that wretched boy's fault. But if it weren't for that vixen, Julian wouldn't have been like that. You know how much he used to love you. He fought with me so many times for your sake. He knows he was wrong now. If you don't go back and save him, he'll truly go mad. Please, I'm begging you, just give him one more chance." It was all that bitch's fault, every last bit of it. For the sake of your 7 years together, can't you just forgive him this one time? Alina's words turned into sobs. She gripped my arm, pleading desperately, certain that this performance would move me. But my expression remained placid, my eyes holding only a bottomless melancholy. I sighed deeply, and the words I spoke made Alina's crying stop and a cold sweat break out on her skin. "Auntie, Sylvia had a miscarriage, didn't she?" Alina's body trembled. She looked at me in disbelief. "How did you know? You're in a different country." I chuckled softly and pulled my hand away from her grasp. I stood up, looking down at her. "Auntie, if you're looking for someone to carry on the family line, you should find someone else. Find someone Julian actually likes, someone he won't get tired of. That way, when he cheats again, he won't be able to blame another woman. Sylvia was at fault, but that's not an excuse for him to shed all responsibility. Adults should be held accountable for their actions. Auntie, I'm doing very well here, please leave." I had shown her the door. Alina panicked. If I wouldn't go back with her, Julian, who was being watched by Victor Sterling, would never be able to leave the country. How would he ever get back to normal? She couldn't watch her brilliant son become a madman as I turned to leave. Alina, in a fit of rage and desperation, suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Auntie, what's wrong? I'll take you to the hospital." I never expected my refusal to provoke such a violent reaction. I rushed to help her up and called for an ambulance. "Hope, just one time. Go back and have one meal with him, please. This is my last request." Looking at Alina's tear-streaked face, I gritted my teeth and finally agreed. "Fine, just one meal." Chapter 22. Returning to the old Forrester house after so long felt like stepping into a different lifetime. I helped Alina inside, my guard still up. Before I came, I had told Caspian the time and place to pick me up. Julian had better not try anything out of line. "Mom, you're finally back, you." Hearing the noise, Julian came out from the living room. But when he saw me helping his mother, he froze, unable to move. "Julian, don't just stand there like a fool now that Hope is back. Be a good host." I said nothing, just looked coldly at the man I had been entangled with for 7 years. He was thinner, more haggard. He seemed to have lost his soul. I had never seen him like this. "Hope, is it really you? Not a hallucination?" Julian muttered to himself in disbelief and then slapped himself hard across the face. Feeling the stinging pain, he began to cry with joy and rushed forward to embrace me. But I pulled a knife from my bag and pressed it to his neck. Alina was so scared she started crying, frantically telling me to calm down. "Julian Forrester, I only came back this time out of respect for your mother to make a clean break with you. Auntie isn't well. From now on, you should live your life properly and stop thinking about me." Julian's eyes were red, his fists clenched. But I was unmoved. The tip of the knife broke his skin, and a line of red blood appeared. Alina kept trying to reason with him from the side, saying she had only begged me to come because she couldn't bear to see him in such a mad state. I hadn't come back for him. After a long standoff, Julian gave a bitter laugh, tears streaming down his face. "Okay, I'm sorry, I'll go make dinner." Only then did I put the knife away. I helped Alina to the sofa and handed Julian the groceries I had bought on the way. Julian kept looking back at me as he went into the kitchen. Perhaps the pain of the past few months had been too much. Now that I was really here, the intense agony seemed to have subsided. It was replaced by a secret, constant sorrow that was intertwined with his every breath, haunting him at every moment. Before long, Julian brought out a table full of dishes, all of which had once been my favorites. He had learned to cook because my stomach was sensitive, and he had wanted to take care of his beloved girl in every possible way. His mother had nagged him endlessly about it. "Here, Hope, don't be polite, eat up." Because of my earlier attitude, Julian didn't dare to make any extra moves. Only Alina enthusiastically served me food. I accepted politely, not giving Julian another glance. The atmosphere at the table was awkward and cold. Eleanor looked at her son, then at me, sighed deeply, and suddenly raised her wine glass. Hope, we were wrong in the past. I hope you find a good man in the future. Julian, Hope has moved on from those things. You shouldn't be obsessed anymore, just live your life. This is our last meal together. Do this old woman a favor, okay? Julian and I looked at each other, then poured ourselves some wine and clinked glasses with Eleanor as a sort of farewell. Well, I was wondering why my calls weren't going through. Turns out, some ghosts just don't know when to stay dead. The three of us turned to see Sylvia, her hair disheveled, glaring at us fiercely. Chapter 23. Sylvia, it's not what you think. We're just having one last meal together. Knowing full well that Sylvia was trouble, Eleanor quickly tried to smooth things over. You haven't fully recovered yet. Why did you run out of the hospital? Julian looked at her pale face, a flicker of pity in his eyes. Ha, so my showing up interrupted your happy family reunion, is that it? Sylvia's mental state seemed unstable. Her eyes were bloodshot as she stared venomously at me. You bitch, I knew it was too convenient for you to just die of leukemia. What a scheming mind you have. It's all your fault you made Julian suddenly hate me. You ruined my chance to be Mrs. Forrester, and you forced me to live in this dump. If it weren't for you, Julian wouldn't have gone crazy, and my baby wouldn't be gone, she shrieked like a common shrew. Sylvia, you've misunderstood. Hope is leaving right after dinner. We just got legally married a few days ago. We can have another child in the future. Calm down, Julian tried his best to restrain her. Sylvia struggled in his arms for a moment, then suddenly burst into tears. After her failed public confession to Julian, she had made getting his love her sole purpose in life. Luckily, Julian had a thing for her body, and she had worked hard to learn all sorts of kinky things just to please him. She had even poked a hole in a condom to get pregnant and become his legitimate wife. But because of my fake death, she had suddenly lost everything. Now I had reappeared, celebrating with them like one big, happy family. She couldn't stand it. Why did all the good things happen to me? Why was everyone on my side? The moment I came back, she would have nothing. Feeling Sylvia gradually calm down in his arms, Julian released her. The guilt from losing the child made him unable to be too harsh with her. I glanced at the time. Seeing that it was getting late and Sylvia was clearly agitated, I stood up to leave. But just then, the now-free Sylvia suddenly shrieked, "Go to hell, you bitch," and lunged at me with a flower vase from the coffee table. With a loud crash, I squeezed my eyes shut in fear, but I felt no pain. I opened my eyes to see Eleanor, blood streaming from her head, still shielding me. Then she collapsed limply. Auntie, Mom, Julian, and I both rushed to catch Eleanor. Seeing the blood pouring from her forehead, we couldn't stop our tears. Hope, Auntie is so sorry. Please, can you forgive me? Moved, I held her hand and choked out my agreement. Mom, you're going to be okay, I'm taking you to the hospital right now. Julian scooped Eleanor into his arms and was about to rush out to find a car, but her next words made his heart turn to ash. Julian, don't cry. Mom has a malignant tumor. I was going to die sooner or later anyway. Julian's whole body trembled, his heart feeling as if it were being sliced by a dull knife. He roared in anger. Why didn't you tell me? If you had told me, I would have gotten you treatment sooner. Eleanor just smiled, stroking his face to wipe away his tears. You were already going through so much. I didn't want to upset you further. Julian, from now on, don't do bad things. Don't make others sad because of you anymore. Eleanor took her last breath in Julian's arms. He held her, helpless as a child, able to do nothing but cry. The instigator of it all, Sylvia, was long gone. I sighed, saw the incoming call from Caspian, and told Julian that if he needed anything, I would help. Then, I left the Forrester house. In the empty house, only Julian remained, cradling his mother's body. Chapter 24. 2 days later, I received a message from the agency. Julian wanted to divorce Sylvia, but she refused, causing a huge scene at the registry office. Unable to deal with her, Julian had found part-time work as a tutor and a waiter and moved out into a tiny, run-down apartment. I didn't know how I was supposed to feel. There was no sweet taste of revenge, but I felt no pity for him either. After some thought, I instructed the agency not to send me any more news about Julian and settled the final payment. Nervous, the car stopped in front of the house. Caspian teased me as I stared blankly into space. I smiled and gently laced my fingers with his, showing him my courage. A warmth spread through Caspian's heart, and he couldn't help but lean in and kiss my lips. Here, ting ting. This was given to me by Caspian's grandmother, and now it's time to pass it on to you. And this boy of mine, not even having the sense to just give you the house in Singapore. A flower shop doesn't make much profit, and having to pay rent on top of that must be hard. And here, take this apartment in the city as a welcoming gift. I had never expected that a simple visit to Caspian's parents would leave me with a bracelet and 2 property deeds. I tried repeatedly to refuse, embarrassed, but they strongly objected, so I had no choice but to accept with a blush. See, I told you my parents would love you. We sat at his parents' house for a while, but time was short as Caspian and I had a date. We bid a quick farewell to his parents. Just as we were leaving, Julian walked in, carrying a backpack and dressed in simple clothes. He saw my hand intertwined with Caspian's, and a pang of bitterness shot through his heart. She had really started a new life, found a new love. She would never look back at him. I was also stunned to see him. It was only after Caspian's mother explained that I learned Julian was the part-time tutor for Caspian's little nephew. Feeling Caspian's hand tighten around mine anxiously, I smiled and gently patted his hand to reassure him. Hope, can you come to my mom's funeral? It's next Saturday. Julian's lips moved, and he finally mustered the courage to ask. I exchanged a glance with Caspian and then nodded in agreement. As we passed each other, I saw Julian's body stiffen. He didn't dare look at me again. His mother's death must have been a huge blow to him. He probably wouldn't be fixated on me anymore. Julian Forrester. I suddenly stopped and called his name. Julian's body trembled. He turned around stiffly, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. He licked his dry lips and asked, "Hope, can you forgive me?" I shook my head. His mother's death and his past betrayals were 2 separate things. I wouldn't forgive him just because of this. Don't disappoint your mother. The light in his eyes, which had dimmed, flickered back to life. Julian watched our loving figures depart and in the end said nothing more. The past was gone like smoke. He really shouldn't hold on to any more illusions. I'm sorry, Hope. If life could be redone, I would never make the same mistakes. Unfortunately, there were no what-ifs in life and no second chances. Chapter 25. In the infinity pool on the hotel's rooftop, Caspian was teaching me how to swim. I had once mentioned to Julian that I wanted to learn, but he had thought that with him around, there was no need. Caspian, however, upon hearing I couldn't swim, had volunteered to teach me until I mastered it. Hold your breath. I'll count to 30. Under Caspian's protective watch, I took a deep breath and submerged myself. 30, 29, 3, 2, 1. Time was up, but I didn't surface. I remained still in the water like a quiet, sleeping beauty. Caspian, thinking something was wrong, dove in anxiously, about to pull me to the surface. But I suddenly opened my eyes, wrapped my arms around his neck, and while he was still stunned, kissed him deeply. First shock, then immersion. Caspian kissed me back greedily, his hands finding my waist. The water shimmered. 2 figures suddenly broke the surface of the pool, gasping for air. Ting Ting, what made you so bold today? Caspian stared at my jelly-like lips and my skin, beaded with water, his throat tightening. Senior, I don't want to passively accept someone else's love anymore. I want to hold the power of love in my own hands. Both love and hate are my decisions to make. Will you accept that? Dazzling fireworks shot up into the dark night sky, exploding in a riot of color. Caspian answered my question with his actions. A kiss even more fierce than the one underwater came upon me. I felt like I was being swept into a storm, and Caspian was my only anchor. A tight embrace, a passionate kiss, from the pool to the bed, a long night where our feelings melted into one. After we made our relationship official, Caspian didn't let me rest, sometimes keeping me up until the early hours of the morning. I was finally able to sleep in when Caspian had to go on a business trip, but a reminder popped up on my phone. Today was Alina Forrester's funeral. The funeral home was not crowded, mostly attended by Alina's old friends. Julian's network of contacts had vanished when his scandal broke. When I saw him again, he was thinner than ever, with a vacant look in his eyes and a scruffy beard. Hope, you came. Seeing me, a flicker of light returned to his eyes, but thinking about his current relationship with me, he could only smile bitterly. I brought some offerings for Auntie. Julian led me to the mourning hall. The funeral portrait of his mother was from a professional photo shoot he had taken her to write after he became general manager. She looked elegant and well-maintained. I offered incense but did not kneel. Seeing Julian's haggard state, I couldn't bring myself to just turn and leave. Is it a burial or cremation? Cremation. I always thought Mom would live to be 90. I never thought I'd have to buy a burial plot so soon. His voice was hoarse, filled with endless regret. Then I can help. I was about to offer to help with the arrangements for the deceased Aliner when a commotion broke out in the hall. We turned to see a disheveled woman bursting in and smashing things. Sylvia, what are you doing? This is my mother's funeral. The intruder was Sylvia. She was covered in injuries, filthy and smelly, a far cry from the fair-skinned, beautiful blogger she once was. Seeing Julian rush to stop her, Sylvia let out a maniacal laugh. Oh, good. I'm in the right place then. Julian Forrester, your family owes me, and you'll pay with your lives, Chapter 26. And you, Hope, you bitch, I knew you two would get back together. Sylvia pulled a gleaming watermelon knife from her bag and swung it wildly, keeping everyone at bay. Sylvia, you've misunderstood. I just came to pay my respects to Auntie. I have no other intentions. It was Aliner's funeral, and I was worried about the ugly scene it was creating. I tried to calm her down. But at this point, Sylvia was beyond reason. Misunderstood, another misunderstanding. How many misunderstandings can there be? These are all tricks I've used before. Don't think I don't know what you're up to. You want to steal Julian back, make him give up on me step by step, right? My baby is gone. Julian won't want me anymore. She shrieked hysterically, terrifying many of the funeral guests. I sighed in frustration and stepped back, secretly taking out my phone to call the police. Julian couldn't believe that even now, Sylvia harbored such unrealistic ideas. Even he had given up on that fantasy, so why was she still obsessed with whether he would be stolen away? Sylvia, you're overthinking things. Today is my mom's funeral. Calm down. We can talk about this later. We'll have a good life together in the future. Julian held up his hands and approached her step by step, showing he meant no harm. Sylvia looked at the man she had been obsessed with for 7 years, and tears streamed down her face. The future? I want a future too, Julian, but I'm not going to have one. Just as Julian was trying to understand, Sylvia suddenly lifted her shirt, revealing a stomach covered in surgical scars. The hideous, centipede-like wounds sent a chill down everyone's spine. What happened? Julian stood frozen, completely unaware of what had happened to Sylvia during the few days she was missing. What happened? You have the nerve to ask? It's all your fault, Julian Forrester. You didn't give me any money, and my account was banned. I couldn't stand living that life with you. Luckily, one of my old top fans found me and was willing to give me a chance, so I went to a hotel with him. How does it feel to be cuckolded? Bet you never thought you'd be cheated on by the woman you once rejected. Sylvia laughed maniacally again, eagerly awaiting a reaction of rage and resentment from Julian, but she got nothing. Julian just looked at her with pity, as if she were a lost traveler. Why aren't you angry? I cheated on you, Sylvia tried to provoke him further, but Julian suddenly lunged forward and hugged her tightly. Everyone was stunned. Julian held her, choking back sobs as he apologized. I'm sorry, Sylvia. I'm the one who ruined you. Sylvia froze, looking at him in disbelief. Julian didn't care about what she'd done and even admitted his fault. Sylvia, I've done a lot of wrong things in the past. I hurt the person I loved. I don't want to hurt anyone else. If you've made a decision to have a better life, then I can only wish you the best. From a distance, I watched this pair, the man and woman who had once caused me so much pain, and let out a long, quiet sigh. My hatred had long since dissipated. Their current state was enough to make me let go of any desire for revenge. It was good that Julian could understand this after hurting me, but for me, there was no turning back. Just as I was about to leave, a scream of terror came from the crowd. I looked over and gasped, covering my mouth. Sylvia, holding the knife, had plunged it deep into Julian's chest. Blood stained his shirt red, but he wore an expression of sheer terror. In the moment he had relaxed, Sylvia had grabbed his hand and forced the knife into herself. This way, my fingerprints won't be on it. Sylvia's breathing was shallow, her life fading, but she smiled happily. The police swarmed into the funeral home at that moment. Seeing the scene, they immediately tackled Julian and pinned him to the ground. Julian couldn't understand why she had done this. He struggled madly, wanting to tear Sylvia to pieces. Julian Forrester, for 7 years, I did everything to make you love me. Now it's your turn to pay me back. Chapter 27. Sylvia stopped breathing before the ambulance arrived. The knife was plunged deep, ending her life and Julian's future. With both witnesses and physical evidence present, Julian was sentenced to 10 years in prison. For Sylvia's 7 years of youth, he would have to pay with 10 years of his own. I had no comment on the matter. I hadn't wanted to hear any more news about it, but the police told me that Julian wanted to see me one last time before starting his sentence. I didn't refuse. Through the glass partition, Julian sat with his hands in shackles. He was gaunt, his beard scruffy, a shadow of his former confident self. When he saw me, he stood up excitedly, his eyes red as he explained. "Hope, I didn't kill Sylvia, you have to believe me. She deliberately used my hand to stab herself, I really didn't kill her." I watched him quietly as he pounded on the glass until a guard warned him to stop. I knew he hadn't killed her. Before the visit, the police had explained the latest findings of their investigation. It turned out that shortly after Sylvia got involved with her top fan, the man's wife had tracked them down and had her beaten by a group of people. The old Forrester house had also been trashed, and Sylvia had been seriously injured. She had blamed everything on Julian, so she framed him for her suicide. Unfortunately, even with this information, it wasn't enough to prove Julian wasn't guilty of intentional homicide. After I explained all this to him, he just stared at me blankly at a loss. "Hope, I regret it. I really, really regret it." Tears streamed down his face. Through the glass, his sobs were muffled. I just watched him silently. He should regret it, but there was no medicine for regret in this world. A sliver of light pierced through the glass, and Julian's gaze fell on the diamond ring on my left hand. A pain like 1,000 arrows pierced his heart. He stared at the ring, his voice trembling as he asked, "That ring?" "Yes, Caspian and I are getting married." I touched the ring, an unconscious smile spreading across my lips. Julian clenched his fists, his nails digging so deep into his palms that he didn't feel the pain. Seeing the look of blissful anticipation in my eyes, Julian was consumed with a mad jealousy. He wanted to snatch the ring from my hand and smash it to pieces, but he couldn't. Regret was useless. The outcome was set. He was just paying the price for his mistakes. "I hope that in the next life, you can be a good person." Julian closed his eyes in despair, having sent away the woman who had loved him most in this life and welcoming the beginning of his own nightmarish existence. I stood up to leave. For me, this was just a turning point. From now on, my life would only get better. What happened to Julian was no longer my concern. But just as I stepped out of the visiting room, a guard's shout made me stop in my tracks. "Inmate Forrester has committed suicide." The words froze me in place. I turned to look. The man who had been talking to me just moments ago had slammed his head against the wall. Dark red blood trickled down his forehead, staining his entire face. I stayed at the prison for half an hour to give my statement, then left. Sunlight pierced through the clouds, bringing a warmth that dispelled the long-standing gloom. Those 7 years of love and hate were finally over. I hope that in the next life, we will never meet again. Chapter 28. After Julian's death, since no family came forward to claim his body, the prison contacted me. In the end, I had him cremated and buried in the same cemetery as his mother. Caspian stood by my side, holding a black umbrella. A fine mist hung in the air as we watched Julian's burial and the placement of his headstone. I chose the photo for his memorial. I didn't pick one from our time together, but an old one from a photo album, showing him as a confident, spirited teenager in his school uniform. In the photo, he had sharp brows and bright eyes, his smile confident and radiant as he looked at me, the one taking the picture. My mind drifted back to all the moments I had shared with Julian. The first year, he had protected me from bullies and confessed his love, while publicly rejecting and humiliating Sylvia in front of the whole school. The second year, we went to the same university. When his mother cut him off for disagreeing with her, he worked multiple part-time jobs, and we supported each other in a tiny rented apartment. The fifth year, he became a general manager at his company, earning a huge salary, and bought me every gift he could think of to make me happy. The sixth year, he saved me from a near-fatal car accident. After a month in the ICU, he proposed to me, vowing to love and protect me for the rest of his life. The 7th year, he got entangled with Sylvia, betrayed me 100 times, and then died in prison. The past felt like it had happened in another life. For me, it was like watching a sad movie. The story was over, the audience had dispersed. I placed a final bouquet of gardenias in front of Julian's gravestone. There was no sadness, no joy. In the end, Julian had become just a passerby in my life. Time flew by. When the new year arrived, Caspian and I held our wedding. This was the first and only wedding of my life. I finally wore the wedding dress I had always loved, took the wedding photos I had yearned for, and walked into the hall of marriage with the person I loved. Ting ting, I'm so happy that I can be with you. After exchanging rings, Caspian's eyes welled with tears, and the hand holding the microphone trembled. I hugged him back, my smile radiant and beautiful. Me too, Caspian, I'm so happy. Amidst the cheers and applause of our guests, we embraced and kissed deeply. Confetti rained down, music filled the air. I had taken a very, very long road, but I had finally found the true love of my life. After we married, I opened another flower shop in our home country. We brought a bouquet with us on every date. When I became pregnant, Caspian, despite his busy schedule, always made time to be with me and take care of me. When I gave birth, he, a grown man, cried like a baby outside the delivery room. I had a lovely daughter. Caspian kissed my sweat-drenched forehead, his heart aching for the pain I had endured. He declared we would not have any more children. Our daughter was smart, lovely, and loved to travel, so we took her everywhere. We took her to see sunsets on hillsides covered in flowers and to see the great, rolling oceans. Free and happy, the world was filled with the sight of the two of them holding their child's hand. If the south wind knows my heart, it will not let the evening clouds bring the dusk. From now on, my life would no longer be a setting sun, but an endless dawn, shining warmly upon me. The end.